A man calls his greatest achievement a Sistine Chapel. He says it without irony, without hesitation. Like a painter signing his name to a canvas. The job takes 25 minutes. 15 men in masks. A leather glove over a green signal light. A cheap battery wired to the red one. 2.6 million pounds in used banknotes, passed hand to hand in near total darkness. 25 minutes to build the myth. 50 years to be consumed by it. Because the train driver who collapsed on the floor of his own cab, struck half-conscious, then forced to keep driving, never called it art. Never called it anything. He just never recovered. This is the story of a man who mistook crime for a masterpiece, and what that masterpiece cost everyone it touched. England, 1939. A boy stands at his stepmother's purse. He is 8 years old. His mother has been dead for 4 years. His father has already remarried, and Bruce Reynolds is about to steal. Not because he's hungry, not because he needs the money. He is evening the score. That's the phrase he uses later. Evening the score. An 8-year-old who has already decided the world owes him something, and that taking it back is a kind of justice. This is the moment that matters. Not the money, the story. A boy who turns theft into a narrative about fairness. Who decides that what he's doing isn't stealing? It's correcting an imbalance. Every crime Bruce Reynolds ever commits will be wrapped in this same logic. It isn't crime. It's something else. Something higher. He will spend the next 50 years proving that story true. And that story will eat him alive. But first, the boy has to become someone. He tries the Royal Navy, fails the eyesight test, gets a job at the Daily Mail as a junior journalist, gets bored, tries accounting, quits, deserts Army National Service after just 2 days, 2 days, to go on a jewelry thieving spree. Nothing fits. He is a man looking for a stage that doesn't exist yet. At 17, he joins a bicycle racing team. The other riders shoplift, steal bikes, and something clicks. This is the world where Bruce Reynolds makes sense. Not the world of desks and eye exams. This one, where the rules belong to whoever is bold enough to break them. He goes to prison young, doesn't flinch. Later, he describes it as going from prep school to university. He goes in smashing windows. He comes out talking to safecrackers. And then, slowly, deliberately, he starts building a character. Tailored suits, an Aston Martin, Nietzsche on the nightstand, fancy restaurants where he always picks up the check. By day, he poses as a rare antiques dealer. By night, he steals the antiques he sells. His crew starts calling him Napoleon. He doesn't correct them. The gap between who Bruce Reynolds is and who Bruce Reynolds performs, that gap is the engine of everything that follows. Each heist gets bigger, more elaborate, more theatrical. But there's still rehearsals. He knows it. He is waiting for something worthy of the character he's built. And then, through a chain of contacts, someone introduces Reynolds to information from inside the Royal Mail. A senior security officer, a man they call the Ulsterman. The Ulsterman tells them this. Certain nights, the Glasgow to London mail train carries millions in untraceable used banknotes, unguarded except by the men who sort them. Reynolds hears this, and he knows. This is his Sistine Chapel. 15 men, each recruited for a specific role. One of them is Ronnie Biggs. He doesn't come to Reynolds' door to join a heist. He comes to borrow money for a house down payment. Biggs has gone straight. 3 years clean. Wife, kids, a construction job, renovating homes as a carpenter. Reynolds recruits him instead. Biggs gets one job. Find a retired train driver who can operate the locomotive. He finds a 63-year-old former driver, a man whose home Biggs is currently renovating. Not a criminal, a retiree who trusts his carpenter. Remember this: Biggs' one job. It matters later. August 8th, 1963, 3 in the morning. The Buckinghamshire countryside sits in total darkness. The plan is elegant in its simplicity. A leather glove placed over the green signal light. A cheap battery wired to the red one. That's all it takes to stop a Royal Mail train carrying 2.6 million pounds. A glove and a battery. The train slows. Stops. Reynolds picks up the radio. "This is it." His voice is steady. This is the moment he's been building toward his entire life. Co-driver David Whitby climbs out of the cab to check the trackside phone. The line is dead. Cut. Before he can react, masked men grab him in the darkness. One voice close to his ear: "If you shout, I'll hurt you." Inside the cab, driver Jack Mills tries to fight back. Someone hits him with an iron bar. Several lacerations across his face. A deep wound on the back of his head. The men who agreed there would be no violence struck him until he stopped resisting. And then, this is the detail that changes everything you feel about this story. While badly wounded and half-conscious, Jack Mills is pulled off the floor. He is forced to drive the uncoupled train forward to Brigo Bridge. Why? Because he is the only person who can operate the modern, vacuum-powered brakes. The retired driver Biggs recruited, that 63-year-old man, cannot figure out the controls. Different system, older training. He tries, he fails. Biggs' one job failed completely. So an injured man drives the train for the men who attacked him. A human chain forms in near total darkness. 128 mailbags passed hand to hand from train to army truck, hands grabbing canvas in the dark. At 3:30 a.m., 8 bags remain. Reynolds tells them to leave them. They have a schedule to keep. 2.6 million pounds stolen, the largest robbery in British history. And in the rear carriages of that same train, 50 postal workers sit in complete silence. They have no idea the front half of their train has been detached and driven away. 50 people sitting in the dark, not knowing they are part of someone's masterpiece. You cannot call something a Sistine Chapel when there's a man injured on the floor, when the only reason the plan works is because a victim is forced to complete it. The art was always a story, and the story was already lying. The farmhouse is called Leatherslade, 27 miles from the robbery site. The men arrive with their fortune. Someone is supposed to burn the farm down after they leave. No one will. Picture this: 15 men crammed into a farmhouse, surrounded by more cash than most have ever seen. And what do? They play Monopoly, with real stolen banknotes. Hundreds of thousands of pounds on a board game. They are performing wealth as entertainment and pressing their fingerprints into every surface they touch. The board, the table, the cups, the windows. Police will later recover 311 fingerprints from this farmhouse. The Monopoly board alone will convict multiple men. 311 prints from men who believed they'd pulled off the perfect crime. The incompetence cascades. Someone tries to repaint the army truck. Military green has to go. They choose yellow. Bright, attention-grabbing yellow. They run out of paint halfway through. So now there's a truck in rural Buckinghamshire. Half army green, half canary yellow. Invisible, this is not. During the robbery itself, one man told the bound postal workers not to call the police for 30 minutes. He thought he was buying time. What he actually gave investigators was an exact search radius. Draw a circle 30 minutes from the crime scene. The farmhouse sits inside it. Another robber rents a flat in London, pays 3 months in advance using only 10-pound notes. Stacks and stacks of tens for rent. The landlord takes the money. The landlord is the widow of a police officer. And then there's the bicycle. One man brought a bicycle to the heist, just in case. When the telephone at the farmhouse fails and the men are trapped with no outside contact, that bicycle becomes their only link to the world. The greatest robbery in British history. The getaway plan involves a man pedaling down a country lane. Each detail is almost funny on its own. A board game, a half-painted truck, a bicycle. But together they tell a different story. These men are not artists. They are not masterminds. They are playing dress-up. And the game is already over. They just don't know it yet. Nobody burns the farmhouse down. If you're following this story, take a second to subscribe. It really does help. And there's a lot more to this one. Now we meet the other side. Tommy Butler, age 54, head of the flying squad, Scotland Yard's elite robbery unit. Single, lives with his mother, works 7 days a week, no friends. Decorated 36 times for police work. No tailored suits, no Aston Martin, no Nietzsche on the nightstand, no nickname, no mythology whatsoever. Tommy Butler doesn't need a story about himself. He just doesn't stop. The fingerprints lead everywhere, 311 of them. The arrests come in waves. The trial is swift and savage. The judge hands down 30-year sentences, longer than most convicted of violent offenses receive. He wants to send a message. The message backfires. The press turns the robbers into folk heroes, gentlemen who took on the establishment and almost got away with it. The myth Reynolds built is now amplified by every newspaper in Britain. And then the escapes begin. Charlie Wilson, they call him the Silent Man. In prison, guards check him every 15 minutes. He is forced to sleep naked. No clothes, no sheets. Nothing he could use to run. He escapes anyway. 3 masked men arrive in the dead of night. Ladders, grappling hooks, 20-foot walls. They gag a guard, steal his keys, raise no alarms. Wilson vanishes. Plastic surgery, a ranch in Canada under a false name, a golf club membership. The gentleman farmer 6,000 miles from his empty cell. Then Biggs. His wife arranges the whole thing. She pays a former convict £5,000, $360,000 in today's money. Broad daylight. A moving truck backs up to the prison wall. A grappling hook arcs over 25 feet of concrete. A rope ladder drops. Inside the yard, other inmates tackle the guards to buy Biggs time. He climbs the wall, drops through a pre-cut hole in the truck roof. Gone. Plastic surgery in Paris, Australia, then Brazil. Reynolds runs for 5 years, 4 countries. And this is where the myth meets arithmetic. Bruce Reynolds has £2.6 million worth of freedom, and he cannot stop being Bruce Reynolds. He spends £56,000 a month. The Aston Martin life, the gentleman abroad, fine restaurants, expensive hotels, the full performance of a man who belongs in these rooms. In 5 years, he burns through the equivalent of £3.6 million in today's money. He is not hiding. He is performing. And performance at this rate has an expiration date. The myth is consuming its maker, pound by pound, month by month. The Sistine Chapel's returns, spent on maintaining the illusion of the man who painted it. And then the money is gone. Tommy Butler is still working, 7 days a week, living with his mother. No persona, no performance, just pursuit. 5 years, 4 countries, a global manhunt. And then Butler is at the door, Hello, Bruce. It's been a long time. 5 words, no theater, no posture. The detective who lived with his mother and worked every day of the week has outlasted the man who read Nietzsche and drove an Aston Martin. And even now, even in this moment, Reynolds cannot drop the character. C'est la vie. French, elegant, performed, the gentleman thief in handcuffs. Then something breaks. Reynolds kneels down. His 6-year-old son is standing there. The boy doesn't understand what's happening, why these men are in the house. Reynolds says, "Dad's been a naughty boy and is going away for a long time." This is the first time he tells a story that isn't for himself. It's for someone who can't handle the truth. And it might be the most honest thing he's ever said. But even now, he can't say it without the mask. Not criminal, not thief, naughty boy. Always the story. Even when it breaks his own heart. Let's finish them. All of them. One by one. Ronnie Biggs, the most famous train robber in history. Arguably, the least competent. His one job failed. His driver couldn't operate the train. In Brazil, none of that matters. Biggs becomes a celebrity. Gives interviews. Sells autographs. Throws barbecues. 50 pounds a head to meet the famous fugitive. He records a song with the Sex Pistols, gets kidnapped, drugged, and stuffed into a duffel bag labeled Live Anaconda. Someone's attempt to smuggle him to Barbados. Brazil demands him back. The media rights to his story earn him more money than the robbery ever did. The myth becomes the product. The product becomes the man. Then, on his 70th birthday, a 3-day bender causes a stroke. Half his body goes still. The man who escaped prison and fled across continents is now trapped inside himself. The Sun newspaper pays him £20,000 to fly home and surrender. He has 28 years left on his sentence. The most famous fugitive in the world pays for his own ticket back to prison. Charlie Wilson, the silent man. The one who told Tommy Butler, "You won't find the money." He was caught in Canada, not through detective work, not through informants. He sent a Christmas letter to a relative in England. Authorities intercepted it. 50 officers surrounded his home. The silent man, undone by a sentence on a card. After parole in 1978, Wilson went back. Organized crime. Fraud, international drug trafficking. The gentleman farmer was finished. In 1990, a young man came to his door. Said he had a message from an associate in London. They talked for 5 minutes. Calm, conversational. Then the visitor struck him, knocked him to the ground, and ended his life right there on the doorstep. Charlie Wilson, age 57. The one responsible was never found. Bruce Reynolds, the mastermind. Napoleon, the gentleman thief. After prison, he returns to London, broke, no connections. Nobody in the criminal world will work with him. The Aston Martin is gone. The Nietzsche is gone. The tailored suits are gone. In the 1980s, the man who called his crime a Sistine Chapel, who compared himself to Napoleon, is arrested for trafficking amphetamines, dealing speed out of desperation. The myth couldn't sustain itself. It never could. It was always running on borrowed money and borrowed time, and both ran out. And now, Jack Mills, the train driver who tried to fight back at 3 a.m, who was struck with an iron bar, who half-conscious and wounded, was pulled off the floor and forced to drive the train for the men who attacked him. Mills went back to work, light duties. He retired in 1967. He died in 1970. The sources say it plainly. Mills never overcame the trauma of the robbery. No one was ever specifically convicted for the assault on him. No one ever answered for what happened in that cab. Reynolds called it his Sistine Chapel. Jack Mills called it the thing that ended his life. And for 50 years, the world has mostly remembered the painter, not the man who suffered. There is one more person in this story, the Ulsterman, the senior Royal Mail security officer who made the entire robbery possible. He provided the inside information, the schedules, the amounts, the routes. Without him, there is no heist. There is no masterpiece. There is no myth. His real identity has never been established, never caught, never identified, never charged. He told no story about himself, wrote no memoir, gave no interview, sold no autographs, didn't call it art, didn't call it anything. Reynolds called the robbery his Sistine Chapel and spent 50 years selling the canvas. Biggs turned his name into a brand and came home half paralyzed. Wilson kept quiet, kept the money, and someone silenced him permanently. They all had stories. They all had myths. They all had versions of themselves they couldn't stop performing. The Ulsterman had silence. And silence is the only thing that got away clean. One last detail. Bruce Reynolds' son, the 6-year-old boy standing in that doorway, hearing his father say, "Dad's been a naughty boy," grew up, became a musician. His most famous song, "Woke Up This Morning," the theme to The Sopranos, a show about men who told themselves stories, about honor, about family, about what they deserved, and what those stories cost them. If this one stayed with you, leave a comment. Tell me which detail you can't let go of. Subscribe if you haven't. I'll see you in the next one. The boy at the purse, the man at the radio, the painter who never noticed the harm on the floor. Same person, same story, beginning to end.